we're going to call one of our friends, Warren Sawkiw. As you know, longtime baseball guy. He's worked for Rogers covering the Blue Jays and also a former player himself. But there was a passing in this area, Etobicoke, of a major baseball coach. I'm looking for Warren.
There they are.
Oh, look at you! That's like. Did you steal a lot of bases when you played? Because you got a huge jump on me on that one.
I was crafty stealing bases. I wasn't necessarily a base stealer, Mike.
No, I didn't think so. Well, hey, thanks for joining us here today. Sort of the circumstance, not the greatest, but I will say this. When an individual passes, I think, there's that initial shock, there's hurt, and there's a mourning process. We just saw that with Johnny Bower, with literally the entire hockey community and the I would say almost the whole city of Toronto, whether you were a hockey person or not. But then there's also the acknowledgement of what they did as human beings. And the passing of Whitey for you was very personal. And for those who don't know who we're talking about or what that significance is, why don't you explain who he was?
Yeah, sure. Thanks a lot, gentlemen. I really appreciate you having me on today. It's, I think this is really profound, Mike, because I listened to you talk about the Johnny Bower and how you had mentioned that you would have loved to have that lunch with him. You know, you kept talking about, gosh, if I could have seen him one more time, and then he was gone. And we always just thought that he would be around because he was always around. We always saw Johnny well. Steve Whitey Breitner was a manager for the Etobicoke Rangers and grew up playing through the Labatt Metro Major League and played for Leaside, but came over to Etobicoke when a legendary name by the name of Bob Smythe, who many might know, actually was one of the first ones to find Joey Votto. It really brought Whitey over, and Whitey started to craft the legend of Steve Whitey Breitner as the leader of the Etobicoke Rangers. And it just started to grow from there because for me personally, this was a program that when I finished my 9 years of professional baseball and I retired, aka retired professionally, I had a place to come home to. And I wasn't going to play any more baseball, Mike. I was done. I was like, okay, I'm not going to play. But then Greg O'Halloran, who's a name that many know in baseball, said, listen, just come out and play for the Etobicoke Rangers. I think you'll really like it. There's a group of great guys there. And it was more than that, gentlemen. It was about a bunch of excellent baseball players that excelled at the highest level. And Steve, being the manager, was one of those positive influences that just brought so much out of us. And so when I look back now, and he just passed earlier this week, and when I thought about over the holidays, I had some opportunities. There were some events. We had known that Whitey was slipping downhill. He had been battling cancer. But he had had a great year of seeing a lot of his former players and teammates and friends and family. And I shared some pictures with David Bastel. And
we're showing. We're actually, just so you know, Warren, as those are watching the program here today, we're showing some of those pictures as you speak, so people are starting to understand.
Yeah.
The relationship he had, and there's some fantastic pictures. But we are showing them just so you know as you're speaking, as you're talking.
No, and I appreciate that. And the fact that, Greg Hamilton from Baseball Canada, and I know you know him, and many who are watching, if you don't know about Greg, I mean, this man, in conjunction with Dave Wiseman, another great baseball player out of the High Park here in the Etobicoke area, they really spearheaded with the Blue Jays, getting Whitey to throw the first pitch out. And, oh my gosh, there were hundreds and hundreds of fans and friends and baseball team members around the Rogers Center earlier this year. And the Blue Jays never allow a visiting player to catch an opening pitch, but they allowed Joey to catch the opening pitch from Steve. And you know what? It was such a heartfelt moment, and to see everybody there and wearing the T-shirts for Whitey that Mike Gauthier had so well organized to get this event going. There's so many people that I could praise, but this is an individual, when you talk about amateur baseball and you talk about even professional ranks, because Whitey got drafted by the Detroit Tigers and played in Lakeland much like I did, and had an opportunity. He was a left-handed pitcher. And then he came back and he imparted and shared that knowledge with the young players. And you know what? When I look back and think about how important that is to give back to the community, Whitey was all about that.
Warren, you know what? Just listening to the story, it's almost like, in Canada, anywhere, basically in North America, you grow up playing sports or your sport of choice. Mine was hockey. I loved baseball. I played baseball as well, but you always remember that one or two significant coach or coaches in your childhood. And this guy sounds like not only was he one for you, but he was one for thousands of people in this area.
Well, he certainly was. And coaching, as you know, David, is about, it's relating to people and relating to individuals. And many of the managers and coaches that we see at the highest ranks of professional baseball, the best ones know how to relate to people. And that's the one thing, when I think back to, you know, the moments and the memories, like driving down to Windsor. I mean, Windsor was always a hotbed of baseball, guys. Mm-hmm. And listen, we're talking like, you know, we're staying at the No-Tell Motel down in Windsor, right? And the Carly lights are out nice and quickly, you know, early in the day, and you know, the boys are down there to play well and play hard, but you know what? They play hard after, and it's all done with family involved. And I think about those trips down there, and you're playing against great competition, and you know, there's some great amateur baseball. If you haven't gone by, you know, Connorvale Park in Etobicoke, or if you haven't traveled around to some of these destinations, even Christie Pitts, out to East York, there's some great, to Leaside, there's some great baseball going on, and we're seeing more of this young talent moving forward. But I think back at the times when I came back, and there was a young Joey Votto, 19 years old, skinny kid, tall, you know, working out with our team, playing some games with our team, the Etobicoke Rangers senior team at the time, and everyone was talking about, oh, Joey Votto, you know, what's he going to do? And then our good friend Greg O'Halloran was able to work with him to get him to the next level. But it was Steve and Bob Smythe and these individuals that saw talent and were able to really extract the talent and give that positive reinforcement to the players. And I have to say, my greatest memories of playing baseball across all my years outside of the Olympics were playing with the Etobicoke Rangers under Steve Whitey Breitner.
That's great stuff, Warren. And you also, I think, also shine a light onto a question that I ask a lot of athletes, I ask a lot of coaches, and that is, why does a certain player from a certain area, why do we know about him? How did this player get so good? Why does this area produce a certain number of athletes that we're seeing now at the highest levels and achieve the highest of levels? Well, you just mentioned that name. I mean, you know, you talked about Coach Smythe. You talked about some of the other coaches. You just described why we're talking about Joey Votto, and it's because of that kind of coaching, that kind of mentorship, and really, to a degree, it gets down to love of other people. And people say, well, isn't that a little over the top? Well, I come from a family of coaches and teachers, and they could not do that job, Warren, unless they had a love for other people, and that's what makes these guys special. That's what makes coaching pretty much my favorite profession, because I know what it takes to do that, and I think those that get to the professional level, they understand it. It came back the other way, and that's really what was lost. And I think that's what's hard for people today.
And true, so true to that fact is you pass that on. So I think about individuals like Denny Burney. Denny grew up in the same play. We all played on the same teams. He now runs Pro Teach Baseball, where the Blue Jays and many of the pros come back to give back to the young talent. That's run out of Etobicoke. And you think about Denny carrying on Pro Teach Baseball and the love of coaching. And then my good friend Greg O'Halloran, who's continued on and coaching other teams. We were down at the World Juniors last weekend, guys, and Mikey McLeod, playing for Team Canada Juniors, was one of those young players. Now, it was in hockey, but it could have been hockey or baseball. It doesn't matter, right? Play a multitude of sports, get involved, show passion, show love, and show caring for others, like you said, Mike. So well said. And, you know, I'm going to share with you afterwards, there's a really nice article that was put up on the Canadian Baseball Network by Scott Langdon. They did that article earlier this year when we knew that Whitey was, battling cancer. I'll share that link afterwards.
Yes.
But, you know, this is an individual that won 10 championships pitching from Pee Wee all the way up to senior. He's an Ontario Sports Hall of Fame member. Who knows down the road, maybe the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame. You never know. I know there's so many people that I let know about your show that'll be listening today, and I know you've got some great new fans out there, but they're huge fans of Steve Breitner. And you know what? We miss him. We're going to celebrate him. But I have to say, over the past year, we celebrated his life to the fullest, and that's the way that he wanted. And I send my love to Karen, to Kyle, to Kevin, and to Kelly, his kids, because it's been a tough time. But you know what? They've had that love because of sport and team and because of Whitey.
So well said, Warren. Thank you so much for joining us here this morning. I think really important words and very special words, and we'll make sure that everybody today, certainly on my Twitter account, we'll make sure everyone gets a chance to watch this and hear this, because it is important, and as I said, words well said. Thank you so much, Warren. I appreciate that today.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot.
What? Did we just become best friends?
Yep.